So the last episode, which we are talking about, I had explained what is grouping by. We took an example, very simple example, where we saw an array. We had integers 4, 4, 6, 4, and then we wanted to find out the frequency of each number inside this uh, list. So what we did is we used the technique of grouping by, but I did not explain specifically how this API works. So if we take this my stream and then you say this as my numbers dot grouping by. So grouping by is having, two arguments here in the first one. Sorry, only one argument is. First one is only classifier. So what exactly it means is that, I can put only one argument here and, then I can still use for each. I need not use a map, a numbers dot stream. Uh, so I could just say my numbers dot stream dot collectors dot grouping by. And I can just close this. And then this one I can close. Then I could do a, I don't want to do anything. I just want to group them by, and I don't want to print the count. That means I am giving only one argument to this one. That is, I'm just giving a classifier. But you know that by default, it returns a hash map. So this will also work if I say dot for each. For each, so instead of saying key value, I'll say only. So it will not put anything sensible inside the key value map if I do this. It would still work, right? Let's try. Let's for now, you know, comment this one. Let's see what it prints. This time I added only classifier and then what happens? Oh, so it is saying a number and then it says frequency for me. Still gives a value for me. 444 and then frequency count. So that means that even if I am not giving the second argument, like I'm not giving collectors dot counting, it is by default printing the frequency like 444666. So instead of counting, it is just putting this number and it's going to print me this frequency. So this is just classifying the second argument. I'm not giving anything. But if you want to give the count, then you use collectors.count. So this is one way you can, you know, use the grouping by. And there is a third argument also for this one. So what's the third argument? So my stream dot numbers collectors, if I use this way, dot gr grouping by takes classifier type, which is a function, right? So second one is it takes classifier as well as a downstream collector, and the third one it takes is the supplier. So now the question is the supplier, how can we give this third argument supplier? So the supplier by default, that is a hash map. You can change to whatever kind of supplier you want, right? Uh, you see there's one variation here. It shows extended classifier. And then it gives this is a map factory. Supplier is type of map factory here. And then you also have concurrent map list. So you can have this inside a concurrent map where the value is key and then, sorry, the key is k and the value is list in a concurrent map. So let's take another example where we're going to talk about having a specified supplier rather than a default supplier. Um, Here, I'm not even taking this inside a color map or hash map, right? I'm assuming that it is a hash map, so I'm saying for each key value. So my assumption of this being a map is fine, which means I can declare this as type hash map and a map. Java.util.map. Okay. Now I can take this inside my map instead of saying for each. I can remove this for each. Can I do this? Now it says change the type of map to map object long. So for me, by default, the collectors grouping by will give the output in a map. I need not give the second argument. Let's see would it work. Collectors dot counting. Would this work? Cannot convert into map object long. So that is a map. Map contains object as key and values list. So we get objects here, but we do not get a list, right? So this is fine. So this is asking me, it will get me a list of integers to get me the object. So I can print the my map, right? What happens if I run this program now? So it's giving me frequency of count of numbers 446666. So observe that, there is a difference between if you only just give a classifier, right? And when you give a classifier with the arguments. So here you get an object, but in case of our case, you have to use integer, and map. What it means is that if I was using only this much, this is going to give me by default an object with long, right? And if I don't use, even if I remove the collectors dot count a second argument, you would still get the output in a map, right? Because I did not use a map here. I removed this. I removed this, right? What did it say? Some types error. Okay. Now what did it say? It says I cannot convert map long integer to map long. So that means I will get an object with a long. I will not get a list. So what do I do here? Change type of my map to map object list integer. So I need a list there. So this is the thing that, that if you use only classifier, it will by default give you a map with the key as an object and value as a list of integers. No, I don't want this to be given in a map. I want this because map is not sorted, right? I want to take this in a tree map. How would you do this? So that's the main core topic of describing how the API uh, grouping works here. So that's why when I took this my numbers dot collectors dot grouping by, let's try to use a supplier now here, right? In this case, we can still give the first argument collectors dot collect by. Second argument I can use still give uh, collectors dot counting. Then so it is the second argument is supplier here. So that means that I need to give this for collectors dot counting, and this is now. Does this work? Add cast. Let's go back to initially what we did. And then my map is equal to so this is going to give me integer, this is going to give me integer. My map, what does this say? Cannot for type for hash map. Map cannot be resolved to a type. So I'm going to give import java.util.map, and then hash map. is there. Then so it has collectors start counting. You don't need this. Then what it says? Okay, I need to have object long map. I can give one more argument here. When ULL, is this fine? What does this say? What if I give null here? And then take this up. Yeah, so this is what it is matching. Now, when I mention this as null, that means I am not giving any map. So it's going to take map, long map, object. But if I give a supplier as free or something, it should work, right? So, so now I had kept this null. So instead of keeping this null, I can add this as tree map new. And then, I can cache this in a tree map. So I need a tree map here. Then the output is in tree map, which is already sorted. Now here it is giving this already to me in tree map. So why can't I use a tree map here instead of map? So I can use tree map here. Would this work? Okay. I want to cache this on a tree map. Is that correct? Now we come here with an example where we are putting tree map to a new hash map. No, it says cannot infer type arguments for a hash map. The question comes to you, why is this happening? Uh, left side, I do have a concrete class of collection, and right side is an interface, right? Let's come to collections class. Okay, you have map and you have hash map. Hash map is what? It's a class. Map is interface. So your left side is the interface, right? No, it's a class. It's not interface. Right side is also a class. Correct? This is also a class. Is also class. Map is what? Map is an interface. So in my previous example, we were using a map, which is an interface, right? Map, which is an interface, was there in the left side, and it was equated to, or it was referred to, or assigned to a concrete class hash map. It worked. Why this worked for you? Because the concrete class hash map implements directly the map interface, right? And now here what you're doing, you are putting a tree map, and then you are on the right side, you are putting both of these are implemented classes of collections. Remap is also a collection class, not interface. Hashmap is also. But you cannot put both of them like this because this not only remap not only implements map interface, it also implements sorted map, but hash map does not. You cannot do this, right? So what do you do for that? The simplest way is, just write this as tree map. So put this one. So this is the one, which is should work. I'm able to give a third argument, supplier, to the group by, and take this in a sorted map. Tree map is a sorted map. And then, maybe I can print this. Let's see what happens. Let's run this. Now you see that it's sorted. First comes 4 and then comes 6, right? This kind of example would be more meaningful if I would have taken a example of strings rather than, numbers. But we are going to deal in my next class a similar example where we will not deal with integers. We will deal with the strings. We will use both partition by and group by. Then try to find out when we need partition by and when we need group by. But in today's class, to summarize, let's go through collectors.groupingBy API, you know, how exactly it works. So collectors.groupingBy API. Let's summarize how it is used. So collectors averaging grouping by takes a classifier, returns a collector implementing a group by operation on input elements of type T grouping elements according to a classification function and returns results in a map, right? Uh, in our case, the type T was a map. And the example what we dealt was we gave only one argument here. We ignored both of these. Then we have uh, the one more argument to this, which is it has a classifier and then it has a collector, which we used as dot collectors.counting, right? And by default, you see what it returns. Here it returns me a map of type K and list of type T. That means it returns me a map of type object and long, right? Here have you observed this? These numbers are being considered as long. It returns default a long and object. Now, this is classifier, this is with the collector. The third one, the supplier, is with the type of map. Runs a collector implementing a cascaded group by operation on input elements of type T, grouping elements according to a classification, and then performing reduction operation on values associated with a given key using the specified downstream collector. Grouping elements according to class and then performing a reduction operation on values associated with a given key and using a specified collector. So here we have supplier. The supplier will help you to catch into a particular collection, map collection, which you want, a sorted map. Now with grouping by, instead of catching this in a map, you can also do a sorting using a comparator. You remember in traditional methods, we are using comparator for sorting, right? So instead of using the traditional collection classes comparator, we can also use a comparator inside Spring, but that's a different topic. We'll discuss it later. But for now, just for a summary, you used all these methods. You used grouping by with a classifier, grouping by with a collector, and grouping by with the classifier, with the supplier, and with the collector. This is where I'm going to stop. You know, my session. If you like my session, hit the subscribe button or subscribe. For now, happy Java coding. Goodbye.